Welcome to the Daily AI News, brought to you by the Day After AI News channel.
Today feels less like just another news day and more like a historical marker.
It really does. It's Monday, February 16th, 2026. And if you sort of zoom out, we are looking at this very strange split screen in history right now.
Totally.
On one side, you've got New Delhi, India, all the political heavyweights, heads of state, huge delegations. They're all gathering for this summit that feels very, 20th century diplomacy.
And on the other side of the screen?
You've got the fallout from the last 10 days in Silicon Valley, which just feels like science fiction crashing into our reality.
It's a clash of two distinct timelines, isn't it? You have the timeline of governance. It's slow, it's deliberative, it's all about guardrails. And then you have the technological timeline, which just hit the accelerator so hard back on February 5th that I think all of us are still, suffering from whiplash.
We are definitely going to unpack that whiplash, specifically the whole Feb-5 shockwave with GPT-5.3 and Opus. But we have to start with the suits in Delhi.
The India AI Impact Summit.
It kicked off today at the Broad Mandapam. And we see summits all the time, but the guest list for this one is, well, it's unusual.
It's a rare alignment. I mean, you don't usually see French President Emmanuel Macron and Brazilian President Lula da Silva sharing a stage with the actual architects of the tech.
No, you don't.
Sam Altman, Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, they're all in the room.
Usually the politicians stay in Brussels or D.C. to, complain about the tech, and the tech CEOs stay in San Francisco and just ignore the politicians. So why are they all in India?
Because Prime Minister Modi is pitching something that could fundamentally change the whole power dynamic. The theme is Sarvajana Hitaya, Sarvajana Sukhaya, welfare for all.
Okay, nice slogan.
But look past the slogan. The core strategy is what India is calling digital public infrastructure for AI.
I saw that term in the briefing notes. It reminds me of how they handled payments with UPI, making it a public utility, not just a private bank product. But wait, can you actually do that with AI?
Well, that's the trillion-dollar question.
We're not talking about moving rupees around. We're talking about massive compute clusters that cost billions of dollars.
Exactly. And Modi's argument is that if AI compute remains this private asset hoarded by, 3 or 4 companies in the U.S., then the global south just becomes a permanent client state.
Just renting intelligence.
We're just renting intelligence. India wants to treat the underlying compute and the base models like electricity or roads, public infrastructure that anyone can build on top of.
So instead of a startup in Mumbai paying OpenAI a licensing fee, they could just plug into a nationalized grid of intelligence.
That's the idea. It's an attempt to democratize the engine room of the new economy. And it's not just India, the UK is there playing a really fascinating role.
With Deputy PM David Lammy.
Yeah, they're calling it tech diplomacy, but it looks a lot like soft power. They launched the AI for Development program today.
The African Language Hub, that stood out to me. They're funding a project to make AI function natively in 40 African languages.
Which is critical. Absolutely critical. Right now, large language models are so heavily biased toward English, Mandarin, and maybe Spanish.
Right.
If you speak Swahili or Yoruba, the intelligence of the model just drops off a cliff because the training data isn't there.
It's like a knowledge tax on the developing world.
Precisely. So by funding this, the UK and India are trying to ensure that this intelligence explosion doesn't just benefit the Anglosphere, but, and here's the rub, while they're all discussing how to govern and distribute this tech.
The technology itself just morphed into something else entirely.
You really did.
Let's pivot to that.
Yeah.
Because while the summit is planning the roads, the cars just turned into jets. We need to talk about the February 5th shockwave.
The release of GPT-5.3 Codex and Anthropic's Opus 4.6.
Yeah. There's a quote from Matt Schumer that's been floating around that everyone seems to be whispering, "The water has been rising around you and is now at your chest."
I've seen that everywhere.
Now, Twitter loves a good doomsday metaphor, but is this actually different from what we had in January? Or is it just faster?
It's functionally different. I mean, I spent the weekend with Opus 4.6. In the past, with GPT-4 or the early Gemini models, you were the pilot.
Okay.
You used the AI as a co-pilot, right, to check your work, write a function, maybe draft an email. You were in the loop. The water was at your ankles.
You still had to know what you were doing to correct its mistakes.
Exactly. But these new models, The friction is gone. I mean, developers are reporting that they describe a complex application in plain English, not pseudocode, just English, and the model just deploys a finished product.
Not a draft.
Not a draft, a product. The copilot has effectively kicked the human out of the seat and is now flying the plane.
That lines up with what I read about this judgment factor. We always told ourselves, okay, AI can code, but it doesn't have taste. It doesn't have architectural judgment.
And that defense just crumbled. It's gone. These models are displaying reasoning capabilities that, for all intents and purposes, mimic high-level judgment. They seem to know why a certain design choice is better for user retention. They're making strategic decisions.
And that's why the water's at the chest.
That's it. Because the junior roles, the entry-level learning roles where humans used to cut their teeth, they're being fully automated.
Which, I guess, explains the resignations. When the safety researchers start quitting to read poetry, I get nervous.
Miminek Sharma.
Right, the head of safeguard research at Anthropic. He didn't leave to start a rival company. He left to study poetry because, and this is a quote, "Wisdom must grow in equal measure to our ability to affect the world."
That is not your standard "I'm pursuing other opportunities" LinkedIn post.
Not at all.
And then Jimmy Bo from XAI leaving the same week. That's a pattern. And Bo is predicting recursive self-improvement loops within 12 months.
Okay, can we just clarify that term, recursive self-improvement? It sounds like tech jargon, but the implications feel very, very real.
It means the AI writes code to make itself smarter, which then allows it to write even better code, which makes it even smarter. It's an exponential feedback loop, no human intervention needed.
So if Bay is right and that kicks off in 2026,
then the capabilities we're seeing today with Opus 4.6 will look like a pocket calculator by Christmas.
and the economic fallout of that is what the suits in India should probably be talking about.
That's right.
Fox News cited experts saying 50% of entry-level white-collar jobs, law, finance, consulting could be gone in 1 to 5 years.
Well, think about what an entry-level associate does, right? They summarize huge amounts of info, they draft initial contracts, they format data. If an AI does all that instantly and, frankly, with better accuracy,
The whole business model of those firms just breaks.
it breaks. You don't need an army of graduates anymore. You need a few senior people to audit the AI.
And it's not just the, quote, boring jobs. I have to mention Ms. Anya Monet.
The AI pop star, yes.
She just signed a multi-million-dollar record deal. And the fans know she isn't real. They don't seem to care. So you have lawyers losing billing hours and musicians losing record deals at the same time.
It is the industrial revolution of cognitive labor. But I want to make sure we don't just dwell on the software eating the world narrative.
Okay.
Because if the digital water is rising, well, the physical world is changing just as fast.
You're talking about hardware,
Real
robotics.
Yes. While we were all staring at our screens, robotics had a massive week. Did you see the footage of Tiangong 3.0?
The Chinese humanoid, it ran a half marathon.
A 21-kilometer run in under 3 hours. Now, running isn't new. I mean, Atlas was doing parkour years ago. But Atlas was this hydraulic research project that lasted maybe 20 minutes before its battery died.
Right, it was a demo.
Tiangong ran for 3 hours. The endurance, the heat management required for that. It's a quantum leap in engineering.
And they made it open source.
That's the strategic play. They released the hardware specs and the Pelican VL vision model to the public. It's the same strategy as the India Summit. You commoditize the platform so you become the standard.
So if every university and startup builds on Tiangong's architecture.
Chinese robotics becomes the global standard.
Okay, so we have runners, and then we have the warehouse workers, Alibaba's RenBrain.
Right. This is maybe less flashy than a marathon, but it might be more important for the economy. RenBrain is a physical AI model that seems to have solved the problem of spatial memory.
Spatial memory.
We humans take this for granted, you know. If I put my coffee cup behind my laptop, I know it's still there, even if I can't see it. Robots really struggle with that.
Object permanence.
Object permanence is hard for a machine. RenBrain scored record highs on 16 different benchmarks for this. It means robots can finally navigate a messy, changing environment like a warehouse or a home without getting confused every time they turn around.
Okay, so the robots are getting smarter faster, and they remember where they put things.
Yeah.
That all feels a bit overwhelming. But there was one story in the stack that actually felt like a lifeline.
The study from the University of Tokyo, this is the good stuff. This is why we build this tech in the first place.
They found a link between insulin resistance and cancer.
It's deeper than that, even. They built this model called AI-IR. They fed it standard health checkup data, the boring stuff like age, BMI, blood pressure, from 500,000 people.
Wow.
And the AI found a hidden pattern that human doctors had missed for decades. It accurately predicted insulin resistance just from those basic numbers.
So you don't need the expensive, invasive tests anymore.
Right. But the real aha moment was when they cross-referenced that AI prediction with cancer registries. They found a direct causal link between this hidden insulin resistance and 12 distinct types of cancer.
12 types.
Liver, pancreas, kidney, breast cancer. The list goes on. We knew there was some kind of correlation, but we didn't have the population scale evidence because you can't test 500,000 people for insulin resistance.
The AI simulated the test.
It simulated the test, found the pattern, and has potentially handed us a massive new tool for prevention.
That is the duality of this moment, isn't it? The same pattern recognition that threatens a junior lawyer's job is also saving lives by finding patterns in oncology.
That's the deep dive in a nutshell. The water is rising, it drowns the old ways of working, but it also lifts the capacity of healthcare to levels we just couldn't reach on our own.
But of course, you can't have a revolution without a counter-revolution. While the scientists are celebrating, the lawyers are. Well, they're not. The Empire Strikes Back moment of the week goes to Disney.
Disney versus ByteDance? Yeah, I mean, this was always going to happen, right?
So this is about the Seton sap. People were generating videos of, Star Wars characters fighting Marvel heroes?
And it looked good. That's the problem. Disney called it a virtual smash and grab of their IP. They sent a cease and desist, and ByteDance immediately started scrubbing the content.
It feels like the Wild West era of generative video is closing. Fast. For a while, you could prompt anything. Mickey Mouse doing backflips, whatever.
Beef walls are going up. But it's not just corporate IP. The UK government just dropped a hammer on chatbots with their update to the Online Safety Act.
This was the Grok fallout.
Yes. There was that scandal with Grok creating non-consensual images. So Prime Minister Keir Starmer closed a loophole. Previously, a platform was only liable if it hosted illegal content.
And now?
Now, if the AI generates the content, the platform is liable.
That has a massive shift in liability.
It changes the entire business model. If you are liable for what your model hallucinates or creates, you can't just release an open beta and say, oops, the fines are up to 10% of global revenue. That's an existential threat if they don't lock these things down.
So on one hand, the UK is saying, you are responsible for what your AI creates. But then we have the courts in New Zealand and the US, too, telling Stephen Thaler and his Debu's AI.
But you can't own what you create.
Exactly, the Debu's case. Taylor wants his AI recognized as the inventor of a food container. And the courts keep saying, no, inventors have to be human.
It's a fascinating philosophical tightrope we're walking.
Say, AI, you are human enough to be sued, but you are not human enough to own a patent.
We want the output, but we deny the agency. And frankly, as these models get more complex, like those recursive loops Jimmy Bay is warning about, that legal distinction is going to get harder and harder to defend.
So let's try to pull this all together. It's February 16, 2026. We have world leaders in Delhi trying to build public roads for AI to break the American monopoly.
At the same time, the Feb-5 models are automating the judgment of white-collar workers.
We have robots running marathons, and we have AI finding cancer links that humans completely missed.
We are in a race. It is a race between the capability of the technology, which is doubling every few months, and our ability to adapt our laws, our economy, and, our psychology to keep up.
For the listener who is feeling that water at their chest right now, what is the move? Do we just learn to swim?
You have to. You can't stop the water. The resignations of the safety researchers prove that. Even the insiders can't slow it down. The move is to stop trying to be the generator of the work.
And because the AI is the generator now.
Right. You have to become the director. You have to be the one who decides what problem the AI solves.
Don't be the writer, be the editor. Don't be the coder, be the architect.
Exactly. The value shifts from production to judgment. And even if the AI is getting better at judgment, it still needs a goal from us.
I want to leave everyone with a thought today. We've talked about an AI that can invent products, run a marathon better than I can, and predict my health better than my doctor. If the machines are taking over physical labor and intellectual labor, at what point do we stop asking if they can replace us and start asking, what are we supposed to do next?
That is the only question that matters for the rest of this decade.
Thank you for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll be keeping an eye on Delhi and the code repositories. Stay curious, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Before you go, please subscribe to the podcast Prime. And if you enjoyed today's episode, hit like to support us. Thanks for listening and see you next time.